you can criticize economists for being ideological, and you just did, and I think a lot of people can. Obviously, there are very specific assumptions about how the world works that are kind of baked into the theory in a way that is not even visible to the people who are sort of educated in that theory. But I think, to me, I think it's almost impossible to imagine a non-ideological economics. I mean, I think in principle, we could have studied the economy scientifically the way we study other, areas of existence scientifically in the same, but we can't do it as long as we live in a capitalist economy, because the questions are too close to the basic structures of authority and hierarchy of our society. They're too close to the ways that all of the inequalities, all of the sources of power in our society are legitimated. They can't just be scrutinized in this sort of neutral way as if from the outside. So I think we're never, as long as we live under capitalism, we are never going to have an established scientific study of capitalism. That's just not possible. In a way, you could even say, to me, the function of a lot of academic economics is not so much to instill an particular ideological view of capitalism, but just to stop people from thinking about it systematically at all. It gives you something else to think about instead. So I think, it doesn't mean that on an individual level, we should not aspire to be sort of scientific in a broad sense in our approach. We should expose our ideas to critical scrutiny. We should systematically consider alternatives and formulate hypotheses and see if the world is giving us reason to think our hypotheses are right or wrong. I think we should follow that, but we should also recognize that this is something that's either going to be, you're going to be on the margins as you do this, and that's okay, because the life of an academic, of a professional economist, is pretty good. So the margins of the profession is still a perfectly fine place to be, but that's where you're going to be. Or occasionally, in moments of deep crisis, when the survival of the system is at stake, then there will be periods where a sort of more rational perspective on it is kind of tolerated. But I think the notion that we're going to sort of persuade people in the economics profession that we have a better set of ideas and we're going to win out that way, I think it just kind of misses that there is a deep political reason why economics is the way it is. So you need to just, again, what we were saying at the beginning, if you want to do good scientific work, you actually have to have a foot outside the profession to give you a base somewhere else. Hayek is probably not somebody that either of us agrees with on very much, but I think he has a nice line about this. He says, no one can be a good economist who is only an economist. And I think that's very true.
Yeah. So I wanted to pick up again on some aspects of this, but the question sort of reminds me of that famous story about Keynes when he finishes, I think, being the editor of the EJ. I can't quite remember, where he raises a toast to the economists who are the trustees of the possibility of civilization. There's a sort of a belief among economists that in some sense they are, standing apart and really guiding the forces of history in a way that is meaningful. Of course, that sounds a little pompous. Keynes could get away with it. Nowadays, we wouldn't say that, but we'd say that we're maximizing social welfare, or we're trying to look at things, which is in some ways the same thing, right? One of the things that you ask is is it serving the common good? I think one of the things that economics does in its training is posit a common good. And I think that immediately takes you away from the space of politics, right? Because in some sense, there are many situations in the economy in which there are conflicts of interest. There are conflicts of, it's not just opinions, it's actually conflicts of interests, conflicts of around things like the distribution of income and so on. And so many of these questions become unavoidably political. And so in some sense, pulling away from that, which by the way, the classical economists never did, allows you to talk about something abstract like social welfare. So to that extent, I think that economics, the way that I would like to understand it, clearly can play a good role in trying to understand what we would want to have from a democratic, open, egalitarian society. But posing something like the common good can sometimes, if you will, obscure that.